today on Pennsylvania Veterans Forward, Episode 4, featuring Brian Pultro, an accredited investment fiduciary, a behavioral financial advisor, registered financial consultant, Navy veteran, and active veteran financial planner and advisor. He is going to explain the pitfalls and all of the best practices and good things that veterans should do, and explain the importance of financial planning and what it means to veterans and how veterans can take advantage of financial planning to prepare for their future. So let's get right to the episode, and thanks for listening and watching. Our next guest on Pennsylvania Veterans Forward, an opportunity that I've been waiting for quite some time. Good friend of mine here, Navy veteran, actually active Navy reservist, as we see.
That's right.
Brian Pultro from LPL Financial, and we're here today to talk about critically important subject about veterans financial planning. So, Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. I appreciate having me.
It is great. Been waiting for this interview for quite a long time, and it's Brian is full disclosure. Brian is a financial planner. He's a Navy veteran. He's got quite the bio that I won't read, but I'll let him introduce himself and a little bit about background. But more importantly, with the financial market as it is today, it's very tumultuous, right? It's up and down. Things are going like that. People are panicking. But veterans especially, you don't get this type of information when you're on active duty or you're in the reserves or when you're in the military. And certainly you're not going to get this at a transition point. So tell us a little bit about who Brian is.
Well, obviously, as you know, I spent 11 years on active duty in the Navy as surface warfare officer on 3 different ships, a cruiser, destroyer, and a minesweep, deployed 4 times. And I've been a reservist ever since. I'm currently an instructor at Officer Training Command, Newport, Rhode Island, which helps bring into the Navy lawyers, dentists, doctors, orthopedic surgeons, folks who are going into a specific field, and I help instruct them on their OCS, essentially. I transitioned off of active duty in 2015 to go into this business. I wanted to be able to continue to help people as well as make my own hours, because you can't do that in the military, standing duty and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I have fallen in love with it ever since, because I get to meet people like John and help folks out every day who don't know how to control those emotions and maybe will make the wrong decision, but I'm their insurance policy against doing that. And so I love doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's a great point. Emotions are a big part of that, and I know that you're going to talk a little bit about behavioral finance today, which is absolutely fascinating to me, and how people make their investments decisions based on emotion. Do you know what today is, Brian?
I do know what today is. Today is July 13th, and I think it's the second day of Amazon Prime Day.
Amazon Prime Day, exactly. Amazon Prime Day, where everything is on sale, 50% off. How does that, it's fascinating, Brian, because you've linked those two. This is an example of behavioral finance, and wanted to know a little bit about, tell us, the audience. Now, we have veterans and non-veterans watching the show. We have family members of veterans and things like that. That emotional decision making, we're going to talk about, but talk a little bit about Amazon Prime Day and how that could be used as an example of behavioral finance.
Yeah. So I have a certification as a behavioral financial advisor, and the field of behavioral finance comes out of the study that most people make incredible decisions with their money when it comes to finding things on sale and getting the best deal. But when it comes to their investments, they make terrible decisions. And Amazon Prime Day is a perfect example of this. So I'm going to assume that the majority of folks who are listening right now have probably gone online for Amazon Prime Day and purchase things they need at a steep discount, 25, 30, 50% off, whatever. And they seek those things out. We do those things naturally. When we buy a car, we try to negotiate a better deal. When we go buy clothes, we might take a look at the sale rack. Or, when holidays come around, people are excited about Black Friday and all the deals associated with it. But when the stock market goes on sale for 25, 35, 50% off, people freak out. So
Yeah, right.
if it's our natural inclination to seek out a better deal for ourselves, why don't we get excited when there's a better deal out in the market, when our portfolio is on sale and we can add more shares at a cheaper price? So the theory of behavioral finance is rewiring the way we think about our portfolios and about routine, normal declines in the stock market. I try to get my clients and anybody I meet to understand that these are incredible buying opportunities. Sometimes they're once in a lifetime buying opportunities. So they should jump on these opportunities. And if they have available funds to continue to contribute more to the market, this is a great time to do it, right? You want to buy low, sell high, right? You don't want to buy high and sell low. And so that's kind of what behavioral finance is all about.
You know, and that sometimes it seems almost counterintuitive. And I know with a long-term strategy, that makes sense, right? But it seems counterintuitive, at least it did to me when you got that panic, frantic call about, get everything out of there. I'm going to lose everything I have. Buying when the market is down and you see losses in your own portfolio. Emotionally, how do you, I've used your techniques, but, explain to our audiences that, you see a loss. Some of them could, depending on what you have significant losses in your portfolio. How do you reconcile that in your mind and say, one, the market's going to come back, but two, more importantly, this is the opportunity to buy. I hate to use the reference fire sale because I am a fireman, but in essence, that's what it is, right? So how do you reconcile those when you see what could be, catastrophic losses and then you have to retrain your mind into, I want to buy?
Well, let's talk about step one. You've said the word loss multiple times. You know this already. You haven't lost anything unless you've sold.
Correct.
It's not a loss.
That's true. That's absolutely, that's right.
Unrealized loss. The only time you actually lose is when you say sell now. So if you just see what's happening on paper and do nothing about it, you haven't lost a penny because you haven't sold anything, right?
Correct.
So that's the first step in that process, is to retrain your mind and say, you gotta stop using the word loss. I tell everybody it's not a loss because you haven't sold yet, right? As far as rewiring your train of thought on this could be an incredible buying opportunity, I just try to coach people through real world analogies. And I know I've talked to you about this before. I used to have an addiction to Milano cookies, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't get enough.
That is an excellent choice. As you can tell, I can still have my own addiction as well.
So if Milano cookies were on sale for $1 a bag, I would literally take my arm and just swipe them all into the shopping cart, right? If I would do that for Milano cookies, why wouldn't I do that for all the blue chip mutual funds or something out there, right?
Right.
That's what we have to use real world analogies and actual normal behaviors that we would do every single day to rationalize why these might be good times to buy. The other thing with that is, since 1928, the stock market routinely has pullbacks like this. Every single year since 1928, the stock market has pulled back 10% during the calendar year.
Yeah.
Right. So these kind of routine pullbacks are normal and they're to be expected. And so if we can normalize these routine temporary drawdowns and train ourselves mentally to just say, hey, this is part of the deal. If I want to invest for the long term, I have to accept the roller coaster ride. But eventually, as history has shown us, it will recover and I'll be okay. That can give us some peace of mind and allow us to continue forward without having that anxiety.
Yeah, and that really is retraining yourself is important because, and I still have to do it. I still have to do it. I still log in, and you see things are down, and but your illustration of history and the explanation that you had provided to me during that really tumultuous time, to say, it's only wind, Ensign. It's only the wind, right? Don't be afraid of the wind, right? And Brian's you're a full commander now, or?
I just got promoted commander May 1st. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank
He's
you.
a full commander in the Navy. So that's what an accomplishment. That is a great accomplishment. I want to talk a little bit about now when veterans, especially, they get out and they may, I've heard veterans say, I'm not going to touch the stock market at all. I'm not going to do anything with it. It's too tumultuous. I'm going to put my money in a savings account. I'm going to go get myself a CD. They make certain decisions, and it may probably because of lack of knowledge. Certainly, it was on my part, right? And there's others that may not just have that requisite knowledge. This is basic knowledge, like you're explaining. What are the common pitfalls you see as veterans either transition out of the military or have been transitioned out of the military? And I'm assuming your coaching it doesn't make a difference what age or what era you are. It could be in the investment strategy that you choose, right? Or the risk strategy you choose. But what are some basic pitfalls that veterans make when they get out, or they make when they go to make investments and they don't have any type of knowledge, knowledge when they get out, or knowledge anything that they've acquired along the way?
I think the biggest, it's kind of a two-part answer. I think the biggest thing is while we're in the service, we don't get any formalized training on how to invest, right?
Right.
We do our GMTs on financial management, but that's essentially how to balance a checkbook, how to use a credit card, and how to not go get a 30% auto loan right outside of the base gate, right?
Right. And then you're standing tall before the man trying to figure out why you haven't paid your car note.
Those things are practical maybe for an 18-year-old, but as someone who's transitioning out of the military in their late 20s, early 30s, or even after they've retired in their 40s, that doesn't exist anymore. I think the biggest pitfall I see is when we're in the military, we're so used to having a handle on things, right? We're trained over and over again to know our job and do our job. But because we're never trained on the finance aspect, when that guaranteed paycheck stops coming in and the contributions to TSP stop, most folks, because they haven't had that education, lean back on their training. And the training of what they know is, just like you mentioned, savings account, CD. And that's the extent of it. So most veterans that I see will just revert to what they know and not seek out the guidance on how to make their military pay and what they've earned through their career work for them after they transition out.
Yeah, that's an important point. You go back to what's comfortable, right? Yeah. When you talk about CDs and savings accounts, everybody's got a little, not everybody, but they say, right, you should have a little bit of liquid assets and things like that are available. Why would a savings account or a CD not be a good idea for a veteran as they're looking to begin their financial planning? Especially, those who haven't done it for years and know who maybe, older veterans and older in age,
Yeah. So I'm not going to make a specific recommendation because this is a general audience. Savings accounts do have their place. And my recommendation to everybody I meet is to always have at least 6 months worth of savings in a savings account. So let's just say your monthly bills are $4,000, right? You need at least $24,000 in a savings account just in case, right? It has its place. But I think what you're getting at is if you have the majority of your money in a savings account, which is returning 0.2% interest, and inflation's rising at 8.5%, you're losing 8% per year by keeping it in the savings account.
Yeah. And there's no growth in it whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. And what we need, most folks, I think, confuse what they need in retirement, what they need their retirement money to do. And what I mean by that is am I going to have enough money to live? Well, the question should be in retirement is, do you have enough purchasing power? And here's what I mean by that, right? Let's just say you retired 65 and your carton of eggs cost $2.99. Well, when you're 85, that carton of eggs might cost $5.99. Your purchasing power needs to continue to increase over the lifetime of your investment life as well as retirement. So if your money's in a savings account earning 0.2% interest, your purchasing power will diminish over time because as the cost of goods rise, the amount of money you have saved is not increasing. So you need to be able to take a portion of that money and ensure that it'll grow for your future.
Yeah, that's an important point. The growth piece of that is what I was hoping to get to, and you put that very succinctly. veterans, when they transition out of the military, right? When people transition out of the military and the veterans, again, we don't get this training. We don't get. Explain a little bit about why a veteran needs a financial planner. I mean, it's depending on what type of job you go into after you get out, after you transition out, the importance of really financial planning, and have someone, maybe even someone like yourself who is a veteran who understands the challenges that veterans have, but more importantly, the value of the education that you provide, because that's what was big for me, right? If I didn't have that education, right, I probably wouldn't have even been in the market, right?
Yeah. It's certainly incredibly important for veterans to have a financial planner, just because of all the benefits that we receive during our time in the military, as well as the benefits we receive outside of the military. So, I mean, as a reservist, I'm still on TRICARE. There's VA benefits associated with the GI Bill. All of those benefit sources play a major factor into the overall plan, right? So, just as a hypothetical example, if you have the GI Bill and you haven't used it, you may not need a 529 college savings plan, because the GI Bill may cover one of your kids if you only have one child or something like that. So having a veteran that understands the benefits that you get and being able to work them into the plans, I think, is incredibly important. I also think it's important for you to be in a relationship with someone who understands your past, meaning your service.
Yeah, that's critically important.
What you've been through, and also what the future looks like too. So I obviously, eventually one day I'll receive a pension, I'll receive VA benefits, I'll still be on TRICARE, my kids are going to use my GI Bill. So I love relating to folks in the military who are going through the same circumstances in life as I am, because I'm going through it myself. It's so much easier to relate to the person sitting across from me, understand what they're going through, and then create a plan for them as they, move on in life.
Yeah, critically important to that. And you mentioned, somebody who understands your past. And I know you work with veterans. I know you work with first responders and firefighters. A lot of times I'll get questions about, I don't have a lot of money. I don't have, and I know you've talked to some firemen, some non-veterans, and some firemen, things like that. And what would you tell a veteran and say, look, maybe I can give you $500 or $1,000. Is that enough, or do I not even try and start until I have $20,000?
The best time to start is now. And the reason I say that is there's this famous video or meme on the internet of some professor who has this tiny domino that is maybe the size of a microchip. And on the back end of it, there's this large domino that's like 10 feet tall. And he knocks the tiny domino over with tweezers. And you're thinking, this is not going to happen. But 4 seconds later, that 10-foot domino is falling. And the point I'm trying to make is, if you start now, even with the little amount of money you can invest, you start building the snowball. And the point of that is to take the tiny snowball, pack it up, keep contributing to it, and then let it compound, let it roll down the mountain so the snowball grows bigger and bigger and bigger over time. Eventually you'll get there, right?
Yeah.
You just need to start somewhere, and no matter if the amount is $25, $500,000, or somewhere in between, you should just start eventually to get that snowball moving.
Yeah, it's even like I used to tell young soldiers, when they were going to school, it's in college. Well, I'll never get done. Well, if you start one class at a time, eventually you'll be
Absolutely.
there. So when you look for a financial planner, and it could be anybody, whether it's a veteran, it could be another veteran financial planner or someone else. What are the key, and you should interview, right? You and I talked about
absolutely.
that. You really should interview, because you're trusting this person with your money.
Yeah.
You're giving this person potentially what could be your life savings, right? And I often refer to Brian as, he's got my life in his hands. He's got everything. What are the things that you want to look for the veterans should ask potential financial planners or anybody that they're considering moving their money to, to do wealth management for them?
Great question. I think the number one thing you want to ask is, are they a fiduciary up front?
And explain what that might be, fiduciary.
So a fiduciary is someone who is always going to do what's in your best interest above their interests, right?
Right.
So I have a certification as an accredited investment fiduciary. So I hold that out there to show that I will always do what's in the client's best interest. And going into the somewhat details of that, what that means is the financial advisor is not going to push something on you that is going to benefit them financially and may not allow the same amount of growth as you would want. So ask if they're a fiduciary. That I think is the biggest thing. You certainly want to look them up on BrokerCheck, right? BrokerCheck is a one-stop shop to show everybody's experience level, to show if they've ever had any disagreements filed against them, where they're licensed, all those kind of like LinkedIn attributes that you would want to see for a financial advisor. The last thing I would ask is what's their fee structure? Because every financial advisor has a different fee structure and how they get paid, right? The old style model of a stockbroker back in like the 80s and 90s, they're very transactional. Most models today are moving towards like a fee, an annual fee for advice, or maybe a one-time fee for a plan that can be executed. But you just want to make sure that you ask the questions about how they're paid, how they make their money, so you understand what it's going to entail with regard to your investments.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, even as I look at my own portfolio, I look and I say, you know, because you and I talked about fee structure and things like that. You look at, especially if you've taken, and I won't use that word, but especially if you know, your portfolio is down, let's say, right, exactly. Perfect. Let's not use the L word anymore. But you see your portfolio down, and you still see a fee that's coming out, that's adding to potentially that you know, that down structure. What do you say for the not that I want to use the gambling experience, right, where you throw money and it's there, and if you hit your number, great. If not, then you know you still lose. How do you explain to someone that you know that fee structure is still going to manage the plan you're in and help the help the agency that you're involved in manage your money, even in the downturn? You know what I'm saying? Still getting the value from that. You're still paying for the value of that.
Do you have car insurance?
I do.
Do you pay the premium every month?
Yes, I do.
Have you ever said your prayers at night and prayed to God that you had to use your car insurance?
No.
No. That's the answer.
Okay.
So
fair enough.
What I mean by that is, you know, fees are going to continue to come out, right? And that's just the inevitable part of the arrangement, right? You're paying a financial advisor for their experience, for their knowledge, but one thing you're also paying for them is to act as an insurance policy against making a bad decision, right? You don't ever hope to have to use your car insurance, but it's there if you need it.
Right.
I don't ever hope to have to take a phone call that says, holy smokes, I can't do this anymore. I've got to get out. Sell now, sell now. But when that phone call comes and I spend 45 minutes, an hour, hour and a half talking to that client, calming them down, explaining why they should stay in, talking about the history, and then bringing the behavioral finance in, that's when they see the value of that fee. The fee is not for reading the Wall Street Journal and placing a trade, right? The fee is for the education, the experience, and the behavioral aspect that can calm you in times of uncertainty.
Which is, and I'll mention that again, which is critical. Had I made that decision, or had I said, "Hey, Brian, get those funds out of there," the loss that I would have taken, not that, but a loss is, and I'll use the loss because would have been the realized, the realized loss would have been significant to me, right? Because in its perception, right? If I had $10 in there and I lost $8, that's going to be, to me, that's going to be a significant event for me. I can't really, it's incredible that the amount of education you provide, the amount of coaching you provide, and just for veterans especially, since you are a veteran, to say, hey, look, this is probably not the worst day of your life, especially us as combat veterans, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is not. Yeah. We could trace things. We could trace events in our life that are much worse than what is about to happen, right? Although it may seem like that at the time. So that's invaluable. The friendship and the coaching and just the mentorship that you provide, especially in other veterans, because you're a veteran yourself, yeah. And you know what's happening. You've had those experiences. So what one of our listeners emailed me a question, and he couldn't be here today, but he said, "Ask Brian, what do I do with that SGLI? That SGLI policy, how do I turn that around into something now that I've transitioned out? How can I make that work for me?" And then we're going to talk about others about 401k and stuff like that. I'd like you to talk about.
So when it comes to SGLI is a group life insurance policy. And when you leave the military, that stays with the military. It doesn't come with you. So it behooves you to purchase another policy to insure your family, your home, when you get out. One of the things that veterans don't know, and this is something I talk to them about all the time, and I hope to God they never, ever have to experience this. Unfortunately, I've had 2 clients that have experienced this, is if you're on active duty and you unfortunately pass away, tax code allows you to take that lump sum SGLI, convert it into a Roth IRA immediately. Right, so if you have the maximum amount of SGLI, which is $400,000, you can take that $400,000 payment if you're a bereaved spouse or family member and move that into a Roth IRA. And that is something that is only unique to the military and most folks do not know about. And it's one of those things that can, in a time of grief and a time of sorrow, can be life-changing and change the trajectory of your family for maybe generations to come. And I say that because when you invest into a Roth IRA, it's not money that you ever have to touch, right? So you can let it sit there and compound and grow over time and then potentially leave that to the next generation and the next generation.
And for some of our listeners that may not be familiar with what a Roth IRA is, so people think, IRAs are 401ks, right? Yeah. But they don't understand the difference between a traditional 401k and a Roth IRA, which was critically important when you and I first started talking about wealth management. That education you provided me and the difference between the two really helped me, even in my current employment now, right? To get the proper balance or proper mix between a Roth and a traditional 401k. Talk a little bit about those differences.
Yeah, so basically in a traditional IRA, which 401k plans, most of them offer a traditional IRA, you're putting money into that 401k plan or traditional IRA that has not been taxed yet. So it's going to grow tax deferred over the course of your lifetime, but current law states at the age of 72, you're going to have to start taking that money out. Uncle Sam wants their taxes, right? So you're 72, you're retired, you're sitting on the front porch, you start taking money out of your traditional IRA, and Uncle Sam is going to say, I need my taxes, because it hasn't been taxed yet. On the flip side, a Roth IRA, you essentially get your paycheck, Uncle Sam takes the taxes out, and then that money goes into your pocket. And that money that goes into your pocket is then invested in the Roth IRA. So because you've already paid taxes on the Roth IRA, you don't have to pay taxes again, which is the beauty of that Roth supplement, is that when we're in retirement, a lot of our retirement income is going to be taxed. Social Security is going to be taxed. If you have a military pension, that's going to be taxed. But what if we had this other pool of money that we didn't have to pay income tax on? And that's where a Roth IRA fits in beautifully. It allows you to kind of combine those taxable and non-taxable accounts so you have a good balance in retirement.
Yeah, I tell you, I when you had explained that to me, and you explained that, because I always thought, I'd said, well, I'm going to put everything in a traditional 401k, and I'm going to put as much money as I possibly could in there. And I was contributing. Sometimes I think initially when we talked, it was as much as 20% of my pay. And you said, well, let's look at the mix here. Let's look at the mix here of Roth IRA or traditional IRA. You may be leaving money on the table.
Yeah.
You may be leaving a stake on the table, which is something that I learned. The next thing I want to talk about is, I'd like you to go through is the pyramid. When you started with education with me on this particular topic, you provided this wonderful, colorful pyramid diagram and just elegantly explained each of the components on building wealth. And here's what you do. Here's the foundational layer. Here are the mid layers. I'd like to. So we're gonna put that up now.
Okay.
And I'd like you to go through that and explain just plainly. Give the education that you gave me, because that really made the difference for me.
Yeah. So kind of the backstory of how I came up with this is when I was a young ensign on USS Gettysburg back in 2006. Part of the surface warfare program is you have to get qualified as an engineering watch officer. And my mind is not an engineering-based mind. So I'm down in the engineering plant learning about the gas turbine engines and the generators and everything, and I'm not getting it. It just sounds like Charlie Brown's teacher. It's just wah, 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 wah. So I asked the chief who was teaching me, I said, "Hey, Chief, do you have any kids?" And he said, "Yeah, I have kids. They're 7 and 5. I said, "Chief, I need you to teach me engineering like I'm a 5-year-old child. It's the only way I'm going to get it." And he said, "Oh, aye, sir." And he taught me engineering like I was a 5-year-old child, and I got it. And I took that lesson from that experience, and I try to apply it to finance. So I always tell folks when I first meet with them, I tell them that story, and I always say to them, if you're okay, I'm going to teach you finance like a 5-year-old child. Mm-hmm. Because if a 5-year-old child can get it, anybody can get it, right? So I created this pyramid where it's a simple, easy diagram and a visual to follow for folks to step through and understand with a basic snapshot their current situation and what they might have to work on. So if we take a look at the pyramid, the bottom left-hand corner you'll see is wills and power of attorney, right? That is the keystone. Everybody's got to have a will and power of attorney, right? You want to make sure that all your assets are spoken for if something should happen to you, as well as, if you need a power of attorney in the event of an emergency, it's there. And we move to the right. Everybody needs to obviously have health insurance. You don't want to let that one go undone. If you have an unforeseen medical expense, it obviously could be catastrophically expensive. So you want to make sure you have that. Life insurance is a big thing. And most of the time, this is one of the ones that is left not colored in. It's empty. Life insurance is a big thing. It's critically important, right? So if something were to happen to you, how is your family going to continue to pay the mortgage? How are the kids going to go to college, right? So that's one of the big things that I talk through with folks. And just as a general basic rule of thumb, I typically, when I talk to folks, if they have children, it's roughly $250,000 of coverage for each child. Plus, how much is left on my mortgage? Plus, how much do I love my spouse or significant other, right? So most of the time when I meet with folks, when we go through this exercise, they might find that they're underinsured, right? They might have 3 kids and only $400,000 worth of coverage, which in the event of something happening to them, that most likely may not be enough money for them.
Wow.
So if we continue right on the triangle, disability insurance is there. A lot of that is included in health insurance. I put that on there because there's a lot of folks who I work with who are blue collar workers, like landscapers, roofers, right? Mm-hmm. They might not be covered under a plan with their company because they're small companies. If they were to have an accident and couldn't work, how are they going to recover that income, right? Sure. So if we look at that bottom line, I'm assuming most folks here know the story of the Titanic and how Titanic sank, right? It hit that iceberg and it had some punctures below the waterline. You couldn't see the punctures, but it still sank. So if you take a line and draw it straight across those bottom 4 ones, that's your waterline, right? If those 4 things aren't filled in, you have some holes in your waterline there. And the ship it's going to sink.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, you can see that need to be shored up.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So if we move up from disability to the next row there, as I said earlier, everybody needs to have about 6 months worth of bills in their savings account, just on the side, just in case of emergency. If we continue to move left, it's 401k. We discussed that. Yeah. Hopefully folks can at least do the minimum to meet their employer match in their 401k, right? It's free money. You're leaving free money on the table if you're not doing that. If your 401k is a traditional IRA, you'll see the next block there is a Roth IRA. And we discussed the benefits of having a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA. So you kind of balance those out. So one's taxable and one's non-taxable in the future.
Right.
You move up from the Roth IRA, you have 529 college savings plan there. So a 529 college savings plan allows you to save money for a higher education expense that, if used for a higher education expense, is tax-free, right? A lot of folks are going to have the GI Bill, but I have 3 kids and only one GI Bill. Right. So I need a 529 plan. And a lot of folks are in my same situation as well. And they're great vehicles to allow folks to save for higher education.
Now, Brian, that 529, is that 529, can it be used for, let's say your kids don't want to go to college? Can you then use it for college of your own? Like you want to go back and get another degree, or you're going to go back and you want to enter maybe a second career.
Yeah.
Is that just, for your kids, or can it be used for college?
That's a great question, because a lot of folks, they'll say, what if my kid gets a scholarship? What if they don't decide to go to college or whatever? 529 plans are transferable between family members. So as an example, my oldest, he's never going to hear this podcast, so I can say this, right? He'll have the GI Bill, right? He also has a 529. So his 529 will probably be transferred to his 2 younger brothers, right? So it can be transferred amongst family members in case someone doesn't use it, which is one of the amazing benefits of a 529 plan. Most folks think, oh my gosh, my kid's not going to go to college. What am I going to do with this money? But there's so many opportunities to move the money around and make it work for you, especially if you have multiple kids, that it's a great way to save for someone's college.
Got it. Great.
Yeah. If we keep moving right, so let's just say hypothetically every single thing on this triangle is filled in and you're maxing out all these other things. You have the 529 going. Just a regular old brokerage account, which is a taxable account where you're putting a bunch of excess in, right? If you have more money left over at the end of the month to invest, it would go there. And then when we move up, there's this word pension that is at the top. Do you have a pension?
I do not.
You do. It's called Social Security.
That's right. You learn something new. Again, learn something new. I'll always learn something new.
Whenever I ask this question, most people say they don't have a pension, right? The days of Sears and General Motors and all that, they're gone.
Right.
So there's not really many defined benefit pensions everywhere, but everybody hypothetically has a pension. It's called Social Security. But let's just say Social Security wasn't going to be enough and you wanted to ensure a stream of income in retirement. How could you do it? Well, I put the word pension there because it's another word for an annuity. Do you have an annuity?
I do.
What is it?
My annuity is...
It's called Social Security. Social Security is an annuity, right? So it's something
different from the annuity that I have with it.
Something that pays out every month. So as we get into a kind of a sweet spot as we near retirement, folks can purchase an annuity, or as I say, purchase a pension, right?
Yeah.
You can put money into an annuity if it's the right fit for you. Mm-hmm. And that could potentially lead to monthly income payments for the rest of your life to supplement Social Security or any other retirement savings you have. So those are all things. And I sit down with folks, and this, we did this. We'll break out colored pencils and crayons, and we'll color in each block so people have a really good visual of what they have. And when they leave my office, and I've given them this education on all these blocks, and some of them are filled in and some of them are not. My goal is to have them feel empowered with, hey, I've done these 6 things, but I got to work on these 4 things. And it's a visual of what's the next step in the plan to fill in the entire pyramid to hopefully plan for retirement.
I got to say, that's the best part of coming to your office, was getting the education, doing some coloring within the lines, and then those outstanding cookies that you serve at your office, which I eat my fair share of, kind of like the addiction you have with Milanos as well. So as we kind of start to wrap up here, what would be the key 3 things, the key 3 takeaways you would want our listeners, and especially veterans that are teetering on, hey, I may have some money, I may not have some money. Maybe they have that TSP, and now they're saying, well, what do I do with it? How do I make it grow? And the way I'd like you to explain that is answer that in terms of, finding your risk comfort, your risk tolerance. What are you, because we talked a lot about risk, how risky of an investor you are. Most people are, they don't want to lose, right? But you do have to put some skin in the game in order to get the big gains, right?
Yeah. So I think the three big takeaways, especially for veterans, are go out there and test drive the car. And what I mean by that is find a few advisors in your area and go sit with them and interview them and see if you like their process, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has a different process. My process is solely focused on education and psychology, right? I want all my clients like you to feel empowered, to know that they have an understanding of what's going on, not only in their own portfolio, but as well as the emotions and behaviors surrounding investing. So when I say test drive a car, I'm saying go visit a few different advisors and take a look at their approach and see if it fits what you're looking for, right? Because everybody has a different approach when it comes to how they like to educate and interact with their clients. The second thing is obviously ask the question about if they're fiduciary. That is by far the biggest thing you need to understand. And the third thing is take a look at what you want your future to look like and assess where you are now and see if you personally believe that what you have now is going to get you there. If you don't, you probably should, take a look at seeking the advice of a professional who's there to guide you. And I personally think for veterans, think that you should seek out a financial advisor that is a veteran, right? So they understand, like I said earlier, not only where you've been, but where you're going in terms of GI Bill, VA benefits, et cetera.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that this is you're in the trust business.
Yeah.
Let's let's just put it out there. It's a trust business. You're giving people are giving you their livelihoods. Acting in their best interest, I think, is the key there.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, does this person have my best interest? Not that you're not going to incur downturns, right? Because I won't use that L word again. Not that you won't have ups and downs, but is the person that you're going to hand over, your money to, are they trustworthy? Do you trust them? And are they working in your best interest? Regardless, you're going to have the rough seas from time to time, right? As a Navy term. So, Brian, this has been incredibly useful and helpful. I hope our listeners got an education here as part of that. Brian's organization is LPL Financial. LPL Financial. They have their office. Brian's office is in Chalfont, Pennsylvania, located in central Bucks County, Pennsylvania. His contact information and links will be down in the description, and they'll be included as part of the podcast. So, Brian, thank you very much. I really appreciate.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. It's been wonderful, and like they say on a plaque that I have up on my wall.
I had a hand in that plaque.
Yeah, you most certainly did. Fair winds and following seas, absolutely, my friend. Yeah. So, on behalf of the State Commander, Henry Manila, and the Veterans of Foreign Wars, this is Pennsylvania Veterans Forward, and my special guest today was Brian Pultro of LPL Financial. As always, we hope you've enjoyed listening and watching, and we will see you on our next episode.
Good morning, everybody. Brian Pultro here, your behavioral financial advisor. Today is Fat Tuesday. Tomorrow marks the first day in Lent. I remember my best success story when it came to Lent was when I was stationed in Japan on a mine sweep in 2009. I would crush about 75 of these little guys every single week, the delicious Milano cookie. Since Lent in 2009, I've maybe had 50 of them total.
Brian, let's take those away from you.
But that's not the point. The point is that Lent is a great time for us to reassess how our year is going. How are those New Year's resolutions going? Are there still some things that you could tweak in order to achieve your goals going forward? We have 40 days and 40 nights to affect change in our lives. If that happens to be a financial change, I would be more than happy to sit with you over a cup of coffee and let you know how I can help. Happy Fat Tuesday, happy Mardi Gras, and good luck in Lent. Just one more.
Brian!